I know a woman whose husband, whose name is Chris, has been drinking for many years. And in recent years, his drinking has increased rather steadily. Initially, he would listen to her about limiting it because it was really affecting the family. He'd come home and he'd get just blitzed, and he disappeared every single night. So he'd work all day, come home, get drunk, and be gone. So pretty much wasn't a member of the family, except that, he worked and put money in the bank. So he listened to her talk to him about that he disappeared, and he would limit his drinking to weekends. But of course, then all weekend long, he just disappeared into a stupor, and it really wasn't a whole lot better because then he would just work later and come home late. Then he was tired, and then he'd go to bed. So he was still never there. Alcohol does this. Marijuana does this. No kidding. I gotta emphasize this. I don't care if somebody drinks. I don't care if they use marijuana. I don't care. But when somebody says to me, what's the effect of alcohol or marijuana on our family? Death. Pretty much your partner disappears. So now that his drinking has increased more and more, he's becoming more and more stubborn about doing what he wants. And he won't listen to any discussion about it. All she has to do is bring up drinking, and he just angrily goes, "Stop, I don't want to hear it anymore." So that's called being an alcoholic. By definition, an alcoholic or an addict of any kind is somebody who does something, uses a substance, uses a behavior, whatever, anger, withdrawal, alcohol, drug, doesn't matter what it is, uses a substance or behavior that injures himself or herself or his family or relationships or job in a negative way, and they can't easily stop it. I've used the example before, the woman who said, "Is my husband addicted to television?" I said, walk in when he's watching television and just turn it off. See what he does. This isn't to be mean. If he explodes, he's addicted to television. If he goes, what would you like to talk about? Then he's not. It's just not complicated, really. Is he an addict? Is he not? If you say to an addict, would you be willing to stop this for a period of 6 weeks to see what the difference is? A non-addict will go, yeah, sure, I don't care. Whatever it is. I'll quit watching television. I'll quit drinking. An addict will go ballistic or pretend to cooperate and then doesn't, and then cheats and lies behind your back. Whatever it is. So now he's just not talking about it. No discussions. Every night he drinks an entire bottle of wine, which is really pretty easy to quantify since he keeps his wine all in one cupboard and all of the bottles are corked, and he uncorks one, and in the morning the bottle's empty. It's in the trash. And when she talks to him about it, he says, well, I just had a part of a glass. So out of an entire bottle, he only drank a part of a glass, and the wine addicts, the little wine elves, come out of the cupboard and drink the rest. Or maybe the mice do. But with a straight face, he says, I don't know what happened to the rest. And the crazy thing is, he really doesn't. Because the first thing to disappear using drinking and drugs is the ability to know how impaired you are and how much you use. So he actually believes his story. He wants to believe his story. And so that gives him an additional incentive. Partly he doesn't remember it. Partly he wants to remember what he says. I only had part of a glass. What could be the problem? And the rest of it, who knows? She wrote, and she said, I spoke with Chris tonight about alcohol, and it didn't last long. No, I wouldn't anticipate that it would. Now, for those of you who are listening, I have the added advantage that you don't, which is why I'm saying to her what I'm about to say now. I know him. I said to her, he is simply right. That's one of his addictions, by the way. Almost nobody has one addiction, really. He's simply right about everything. He's never wrong. He just simply never, he will generally say, well, I make mistakes. Then I say, name one. He can't. Well, I'm not perfect. And I go, give me an example of an imperfection. He can't. So he only says it because he knows it sounds good and it will get him off the hook. But no, he's right about everything. And he'd rather be right than breathe. You think I'm joking? No. That's the way it is with addicts. He would certainly rather be right than be married. He'd rather lose his partner than admit that he was wrong. He'd rather lose his family. So he'd rather be right than be a husband or a father. Every addict denies how deep they are into their addiction. It's just the nature of it. Why? Because pain relief rules over everything. I'm going to repeat that. This isn't that he's a bad person. Notice I'm not even talking about alcoholism. I wouldn't really care what he's addicted to. Pain relief rules over everything. She continues. I started telling him how less loved and cared for I feel around him when he's been drinking, even if it's just 2 glasses. And yeah, that's a fact. Endless studies now have shown that 2 glasses of wine or beer significantly impair your ability to engage in a sensible conversation. Oh, it makes people loud and funny and goofy, but not intelligent. Same with smoking marijuana. You just aren't entirely present, which is why the legal alcohol limit for driving has dropped steadily in countries and in states in the United States, because they're realizing that, holy smokes, it takes less than they thought to impair us. She continues, I referred to several recent occasions, 2 meals, 1 movie night, 1 whole weekend where we were supposed to be out together, when he was pretty much unresponsive most of the time. So, do you see her predicament? Meals, movie night, an entire weekend where they were supposed to be, together. He wasn't there. She said, continues, I would touch him or talk to him, and he didn't respond. Imagine, you reach out, you touch your partner, nothing. Like a zombie. And this happens every single time he drinks. He will argue you to death about how much he's drunk. Every addict will. I only had 2 beers. Yeah, you only had 2 beers in the last 15 minutes, but for the evening, wow, you've had enough where you're not here. They'll do anything to prove that they're not an addict. So there's no sense arguing with him. He's not going to give in and admit it. It's his behavior that proves his addiction, not showing him an empty bottle. He can rationalize that away. But you can tell him, you are just a zombie. I touched you a bunch of times. He can't argue with that because he doesn't even remember it. That's why he can't argue. If you can't remember a situation, it was either a long time ago, or it was incredibly unimportant and being touched by your partner doesn't qualify, or you were drunk or addicted to something. Chris is impaired a lot, and he refuses to change it. You continue. I spoke gently and sincerely until he cut me off and walked off, stomped off, basically saying he didn't want to hear any more ever again. I mean, how convenient. You're an addict and you tell your partner, I don't ever want to hear about my behavior again. Well, yeah, no wonder. You continue. I really was not being angry or demanding this time. I happen to believe you this time, as I often have been in the past, and you have. This drinking is simply not what I want anymore. This is the ultimate proof that he is unwilling to learn, that he would stomp off and say, I don't ever want to talk about this again. If he were willing to learn, he would not do that. It's not possible. And that he's an addict. Addicts will give up their peace of mind, their sanity, their health, their families, anything to keep treating their pain with whatever it is they're addicted to. Alcohol is just one example. Could have been a lot of things. You continue. He's not going to listen to me later today, tomorrow, or ever, so I just sent him this message. She said, here's what you need to know, to Chris. 1, I will go out for a meal with you when you're happy, willing not to drink at all. None during the meal. Otherwise, I won't go. 2, I will snuggle with you. He likes to go out for meals and he likes to snuggle. She knows this. And she's not limiting him. So she's not saying you can't go out for a meal and you can't, well, I snuggle with a pillow, but she's saying you can't do it with me if you're drinking because, well, you're not there. She continues, as you can see, I'm not stopping you to do anything or controlling you in any way, which is what I just said. There will be plenty of times when I'm out and your drinking won't affect me or us. I'm just asking you to choose not to drink when it affects me. Our marriage. Well, perfect. Finally, she says, I do care about the quality of our relationship. If I didn't, I'd either leave or I would just carry on like it is, where you're just absent all the time. And your drinking is negatively affecting the way I feel cared for and loved by you, and I thought you'd want to know. Wow, that's a pretty clear declaration to a partner. She's not telling him what to do. She's not telling him he's a bad person. She's just saying, I can't live with this. And that's excellent of you. The odds that he will stop are really slim still. This is just the nature of addiction. He's in pain, and he won't deal with pain in an effective way, in a loving way, so he continues to just cover it up with alcohol. Now, how is this loving? This is to everybody who's listening. How is this loving that she would say this to him? I won't go out for a meal with you. I won't snuggle. Because loving means to give freely to him, to her children, to anybody else. He won't receive her love. He can't, not while he's drunk. He often doesn't even remember that they went out. So she can at least preserve the love she has, because we only have so much. We only have so much emotional energy. I don't know anybody who has unlimited emotional energy, so that she can give it to the kids and to other people. He just throws it away. And she's tried for a very long time. So her telling him what the parameters are for going out with him is actually kind. Next subject. This is from a woman who was raised in an insane household, just nuts. Crazy in every way, top to bottom. Parents taught the 3 kids pretty much not a thing about life. Just all they taught them was don't, and be afraid all the time. That's it. That's what they taught them. We don't realize it, but we're always teaching our children something. always, because they're listening to us, they're observing us, and all they heard was don't, and the world is a really scary place. One girl decided that this was a crazy, sick environment. Can you believe it? It's the only thing she ever knew, but she went, something's wrong with this. And she created a life. It's fairly astounding. She worked herself to pay her way through a 2-year degree in community college, paid for her own therapy, which is pretty amazing. The other daughter was so crippled emotionally by a mother who controlled everything that she just gave up. She didn't know how to work. She didn't know how to be responsible. She acted like like she was 9 years old when she was in her 20s. And I got a letter from the responsible daughter, the one that paid for her own therapy. She said this: I can't believe how much I'm learning about loving my sister. I had avoided her because all I heard was complaints, how she never had anything, nobody helped her, she didn't have a job, and so on and so on, and she was helpless, and I didn't like it because it sounded just like Mom. I decided that I was going to learn to love her. Well, I'll be. And I noticed just this morning how different I've been when she's around, when I'm feeling loved and happy. She stayed over at my house this weekend, and as I was fixing breakfast, I realized that in the past, I felt annoyed if she didn't help to prepare or clean up after a meal. But this morning, it dawned on me how I respond to this situation differently. I simply said, if you want the food faster, then you'll need to help me prepare it. If you don't care, then I'll just let you know when it's done. That is just sweet. Do you see? If you want her sister saying, I want to eat sooner. And her older sister is saying, fine, but you would have to help me prepare it. I can only prepare it by whatever, 5:30. And her sister wanted it at 5. Well, I can't do it by then. But if you help me, maybe I can. But I'll let you know, she didn't make her sister do anything. I'll let you know when it's done and we'll eat. Then she continues, and I really didn't care if she helped, the irresponsible sister. It surprised me that I didn't care. This way felt way more peaceful. I'm excited to keep learning these little things, yet big to me things. Yeah. I mean, this is miraculous. People ask all the time what it looks like to be loving. They'll ask for the answers to problems, but some people are really smart and they say, so in this situation, what would loving look like? Because we ask this all the time. I talk about it on video chats all the time. What would it look like if I added love to this instead of anger or fear? And people ask me that. So what's loving look like? It looks like this. What the older sister did with the younger. She didn't go, well, you never help me. Well, I'm preparing the food for you, so how come you're in a hurry? You never do this. She didn't do any of that. If you want it sooner, you can help me. If you don't want to help, I don't care. And I'll let you know when we're done. It just will be later. Accepting people with their flaws and weaknesses, that's loving. But not being a doormat. She could also have simply chosen to say to her sister, well, and she would now, she couldn't do it before. She could have chosen to say, well, it's been nice spending the weekend with you. I'm going to fix dinner now, so I'll, call you in a couple of days. And simply dismissed her sister and fixed her own dinner. She could have done that. In this case, she chose to fix dinner. You don't ever have to be trapped and walked on. You can speak up about what you want or give options to people to choose from when they're around you without being demanding or bossy. Exactly like this young woman did. I mean, this is hero stuff. No kidding. Next subject. This person says, I'd like some help with my new supervisor. I don't know if the writer's a man or a woman yet. We're going to figure it out in a minute. I've been feeling trapped with her, the supervisor, this week at work. She loves to talk. She'll start a conversation about a simple work task that I could just get done, and then go for 15 to 30 minutes or more about some obvious or absolutely irrelevant and meaningless details. She will assign me a job, and if I ask a question to learn more, it turns into a long, one-way conversation about whatever. Politics, her family, anything. In other words, she really slows me down. It interrupts my concentration. I wouldn't mind if it was once in a while, but it happens at least once a day. I start to get irritated because I really want to just go do the job that she's asking me to do. She's my boss. I don't want to hear her stories all day. So I got two questions for you. First, you're being paid to do your job, yes? And your job is actually to please her. No kidding. She's the one who writes your evaluations and decides whether your performance is adequate. So if part of the job is listening to her inane, meaningless stories, then you're being paid to do that. Now, you don't have to do it. You could quit. But you're being paid, so it's the beef. And two, does she prevent you from meeting deadlines, her deadlines, and then blame you if you don't make them? If you're being paid, that's saying yes to the first question, and no to the second, meaning she doesn't blame you for not meeting deadlines, then you're being paid to listen to her. There's no problem. You just think she's getting in the way, but you're actually doing part of your job to satisfy her. So it depends on these answers. She writes back, I was hoping for a different answer. I hear that a lot. But I understand what you're saying. I am getting paid well, much better than in my previous job, to do whatever my boss asks me to do. Everybody who works, listen to this. Your boss may be a stinker, may be abusive, loud, superficial, annoying, but that's the person who determines whether your job's being done. So you do what they want to do. So she says, I'm being paid well to do what my boss says. Good. Yes, you are. You continue. She has never been upset with me for not getting enough work done. I have yet to have a deadline that I missed. Well, dang. You've answered my questions. You continue. So I just listened to her. Beautiful. So she's unwittingly telling you this. You're a really great listener. Let me start over, because I really want you to get this. She's telling you this. You are a really great listener. She doesn't do this with everybody. And I'm empty. So you're being paid to help support me emotionally as the supervisor. Not just for you, but for everybody else. And I really appreciate the support. End quote. She doesn't realize she's saying that. You'll never hear her say those words. But you're being paid to do it, so why not? It's not like you're being paid to be whipped. It's not like you're being paid to be waterboarded. You're just being paid to listen to, well, stuff you would prefer not to hear, but it's not abusive. It's not like I'm saying you're being paid sufficiently and that it's okay for her to yell at you and tell you you're stupid. No. You continue. And I can do my best to care about her and bring more love to the environment. She so clearly needs love. I have it, so I can share what I'm able to. Bless you. You get it. You continue. And the same with all the other workers in the office. Bring the love I have, the understanding, the compassion, the caring, and share what I have. You don't ever have to share more than you have. If you just finally wear out, you can say, okay, need to take a break. I have to finish this job that I was assigned to do, or whatever. There's 100 different ways to say that. But you give what you got. If that means sitting quietly and listening, or getting tasks done, who cares? You're being paid to do those jobs. You've got it. This is like fireworks stuff. Now, let's change the answers. Your answers were, yep, I'm being paid to do this, and no, she doesn't keep me from meeting deadlines. What if she gave you deadlines, and then she constantly came and talked to you and kept you from meeting the deadlines? Because, see, that happens a lot to other people. Then you might say, right now, I'm working on this project that you said you wanted done by the end of the day. Now, see how calm this is? That's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on your project with this deadline. Absolute clarity, no accusation, no tone, nothing. And then you say, do you really want it done by then, that deadline? Or are you okay with us talking, which I'm fine with, but that will delay the completion of the project until tomorrow? See? Donna does this with me. I'll have something I'd like her to do, and I come down and I say, can you do this? And she goes, I can, and I'm working on this other thing you asked me to do, so I can't get them both done by the end of the day. And I go, oh, well, that's easy. Thanks for telling me. Do this one, whichever. It doesn't matter. And she says, okay, I can get that one done by the end of the day, and I'll do the other one tomorrow. There. How hard was that? It wasn't hard because she clearly stated what she could do freely. And I was really clear about what I wanted. We're both happy. You do the same thing. You're talking to me. I'd be happy to do till we're dead, but I won't get this project done. And you will instantly find out from her response what matters most to her. Isn't that cool? Just because you asked questions, just because you stated what was possible. Beautiful. New subject. I talked to a father, we'll call him Martin, who was having terrible problems with the behavior of his teenage daughter, Mariah, who was being rebellious, refusing to do her chores, missing days of school, withdrawing into her room instead of interacting with the family, and getting increasingly bad grades, to name, well, just a few problems. Rarely do kids have one serious problem. So I asked what he was doing so far, and it became obvious that he was doing nothing to teach her. Not a thing. He didn't know how to teach her. He was just spoiling her. He just gave her whatever she wanted. He let her get away with everything so that he didn't have to face her disapproval, because he's learned that if he says, well, how come you got a D in this class? Or why is the living room a complete pigsty because you watched movies with your friends and left popcorn all over the carpet? He's learned that if he brings up anything she didn't do, she gives him that hateful look. Parents just, they'd rather be dead than get that look of, I hate your guts. Sometimes they'll actually say, I hate your guts, but the look certainly does it. And this is very common among parents. They'll do anything to avoid their child's disapproval because their identity as a person is tied up with their children loving them. Death. As soon as you expect your children to love you, you're done. So this girl had her own new car. She had her own latest, up to the minute, bought 2 seconds after the store opened iPhone or smartphone or whatever. I mean, what kid doesn't, right? I think that if eventually children are going to at birth have their cell phone implanted in their palm so it never leaves them. She did what she wanted all day, and nobody ever reined her in or taught her what would lead to a happy life. Not just no, no, no. That's not our job as parents to go no, no, no. It's to teach them happiness. And her behavior wasn't happy. She was miserable all the time. Pouty little face. You've all seen it. The pouty, unhappy, entitled face. So knowing that Martin was a physician, I said, let's consider your patients. I said, wouldn't pretty much all of your patients like you and be happy most of the time, never disapprove of you, if you simply prescribed morphine and ice cream for every problem? Gets rid of their pain and briefly makes them happy. And after a brief pause, just only a brief one, he said, yeah, I suppose they would. I can promise you, having had both after surgeries when I was in pain, yeah, anybody who gives you morphine and ice cream, they're it. I said, but you don't do that, do you? You don't give every patient morphine and ice cream. No. Why not? Because I wouldn't be treating the real problem, just the symptoms. I said, but you do that with your daughter. You give her morphine and ice cream. Long pause as he digests this, because this isn't fun to hear. He said, dang, you're right. He said, I am such a coward. That took some guts. And I said, yeah, actually, you are. You are a coward. You are afraid of your own daughter. You're so afraid of her disapproval that you're not loving and teaching her. Because see, loving doesn't mean giving somebody what they want. It means giving somebody what they need. Completely different. And there's no teaching. And what you call love is just indulgence. Well, indulgence isn't love. People who are indulged rarely choose what's best for them. And that creates her feeling of entitlement. And the short version is that you're letting her parent herself. And she's doing a really lousy job while you just watch. Martin didn't like what he heard, but he listened. He began to love and teach Mariah, and it was the only natural that at first she resisted fiercely. I mean, like a Wolverine. Because after all, he was suddenly changing the rules. He was changing the rules of their relationship and interfering with her entitlement. No child, in the beginning at least, goes, oh, well, no problem. I'll just give up my entitlement and I'll just work hard and be responsible. Never, never. When she refused to change her behavior, Martin followed the guidance I gave him, and each time she was irresponsible or gave him attitude, he imposed consequences. Like, I suggested to him that the very first thing he learned was this gesture. He just hold out his hand, palm up, which he taught her meant, give me your cell phone. She couldn't conceive of breathing without her cell phone, so she found that pretty difficult. It started to change her behavior right away. So consequences like loss of her cell phone, you start off with her losing it for an hour. And I said, if she even gives you the slightest huff as she gives you the cell phone, oh, Dad, then you go, well, it was going to be an hour, but now it's 2. Well, but all my friends, and now it's 4. And then, well, this just isn't fair. And now you'll get your cell phone tomorrow. Maybe. They usually catch on to this pretty quickly as they realize that you're not going to cave in. But sometimes they don't even respond to that. So you can't keep going with the cell phone. Kids don't have a concept of long periods of time. They don't. So if you say, okay, well then you won't get your cell phone until tomorrow, and then you double it, and you say you won't get your cell phone for 35 years, that just doesn't mean anything to them anymore. So you go to a certain reasonable limit, like, I don't know, a couple days or something, and then you go, well, and now give me the keys to your car. Or you lose your freedom to go wherever you want. The party that you were going to go to tomorrow night, now you're not. And if you go to the party at age 16, it turns out that in most places, I can't speak for the law in your county, state, or country, but in most places, if she leaves home without your permission, in fact, if she leaves home when you've told her specifically not to, she's truant. Some states call it runaway. And I've helped many parents, not one or two, to carry it to the point where the police, with the sirens running, come up to the front of the house of the place where the party is and knock on the door and ask for Mariah, like this guy's daughter, and cuff her while her friends are watching. Turns out friends don't think you're that cool when you have to be cuffed. Put her in the back of the squad car and take her home. And if they have to do it enough, then eventually they take them to the juvenile detention center. You have to do whatever works. If you give in, then the child parents herself. And they really don't do a good job of that because, again, they pursue what they want, not what they need. During this entire process, Martin got the love he needed for himself from me, from other people, it doesn't really matter from whom, so that he didn't get fearful or impatient. Because if you become impatient with your child while you're teaching them, you're done. Because now they'll fight you just on principle. You're attacking them, they're going to defend themselves. It's a reflex. And you did it. You caused it. So you cannot be impatient. Forget angry. You can't even be impatient or disappointed. It took a lot of faith and courage and effort. But Mariah, the daughter, began to realize that her self-parenting had not been working. He pointed out where she was headed. He pointed out that she'd been thrown out of school for 5 days. He pointed out that she was getting all D's in school when she wanted to go on to a career in, doesn't matter, I'll make it up, engineering. And it turns out that if you apply to engineering school and you've got all D's, the admissions people go, let me think. Proven to be completely irresponsible, do we want to try to educate this kid? No. That's what they do, really. They don't go, we can help reform her. No, they want kids who are going to succeed at engineering. And he explained this to her. It took a while. It took some screaming and crying and taking the door off her bedroom. But he kept going. And she accepted the love and guidance of her father. Took a while. Then she became happier. Now, this happened in fits and starts. It didn't just glide into heaven. Her grades improved, in fact, dramatically. That one happened really quickly. And her other behaviors changed. Gradually, her privileges were returned. In fact, he kept saying to her, honey, I want you to be able to do these things. I want you to have fun. I want you to go to parties. I want you to drive your car. I want you to have your cell phone. I don't want your cell phone. I don't need two. I have one. She finally believed him. He wasn't punishing her. He was just showing her that there's a consequence to everything you do. One day she did something at school that was wrong, and they suspended her from school for 10 days. And this was a golden opportunity. He said, and this is why I've been giving you smaller consequences like the cell phone, so you don't get bigger ones. And they get worse. Then it goes from missing 10 days of school to going to the juvenile detention center to getting pregnant to raising a child as a single mother. And then you're going to pray for the day that you could go back and do this again. Start over and not make these mistakes. One day, almost beyond belief, she brought her smartphone to her iPhone, I can't remember, to her father on her own. And she said, would you keep this for a few days? Because in her words, it's distracting me. I'm not getting anything done. I can't finish my homework assignments because I keep hearing messages from my friend and I keep going to Facebook and Twitter and the picture ones and the, I don't know, you know, Twinkle, whatever the latest apps are. She said, I'm feeling anxious the more time I spend on this. Snapchat's what I was trying to think of. She volunteered the phone. Crazy. He couldn't believe it. It was happening. Children need to be loved and taught, not entertained or indulged. They need more than morphine and ice cream. They need real parents. Isn't that cool? I mean, what this father did is monumental. He's changed the entire rest of her life. She was on her way off the cliff, sliding and screaming. New subject. This is somebody who writes, something just happened while I was listening to the 13 February, I assume this year, 2018 video chat. I'm not sure. You can go look that up yourself if you want. This was during the story about the guy at the end who has been committed to real love for 20 months while his wife doesn't participate. So for 20 months, he practiced real love, was more loving, was more kind, listened, and his wife just didn't do anything. Much like at the beginning of this video chat, we talked about the woman who was practicing real love and her husband was just drunk all the time. You continue. I was hearing you say that somebody has to be all the way in. If you want to succeed at real love, being halfway in just ain't going to work. It's like committing to quit cocaine, and so what you do is you use half as much. You know, A, half as much isn't going to work, and B, you're going to go from half as much to right back to where you were. So, hence the term all the way in. You continue. My mental response to this was, but I don't want to be the one to be all the way in if he's not going to do it too. She wrote to me, she said, be sure to say this in your best whiny tone. That's hysterical. So let me try. Well, I don't want to be the one who has to be all the way in if he's not going to do it too. Just following your instructions. And I understand. If you don't have enough love for yourself to be happy, how could you be all the way in to love your partner? Impossible. You can't. You can't give what you don't have. And your partner's pretty difficult, so you have to have a lot. You don't have to be perfectly loved or loving, just enough that you can be happy. If you're not happy, you can't give your partner anything. You continue. Then suddenly I had an idea that it doesn't have anything to do with what I want to do. I can't be the one to be all the way in because I don't have enough love to do that yet. It would be like trying to lift an airplane. I just don't have the strength to do it. You're a genius. Really? You don't. Since I know your husband, there's no way you could do it yet. She says, oh, sorry. Back to me. People are constantly telling me what they want. They want to be more loved, to have their partner be more loving, to be more whatever. And I often just say, it's irrelevant what you want. The question is, what can you do? And what are you doing to improve it So first it's, what can you do? What is your best right now? And then you don't use I'm doing my best as an excuse, because people do. They say, oh, but I'm doing my best. I believe you. But then they don't do anything about making it better. Like in exercise. You go to the gym, you lift a certain amount, you run a little bit, and they say, come on, keep going. And you're going, I'm doing my best. You might be. But if you want to become more fit and stronger, then you're going to have to keep going just a little bit past your best so your best expands. That's how it works in exercise, and that's how it works in life. You continue. Interesting to note that when I was whining about what I didn't want to do, I felt exhausted and hopeless. When I changed it to, I'm not loved enough to do that yet, I immediately felt lighter and energized. That's so cool. You win the prize. Victimhood is utterly exhausting. Oh, it's not fair. I don't want to be the one who blah, blah. Victimhood is terrible, and it never stops. Whereas the truth is just the truth. And you simply decide what to do next. My husband is not participating in being living. He doesn't feel loved. He's not happy. So how are we going to change this? I could nag him. That's never worked once. Or I could just keep doing my best and elevate it just a little bit at a time. Yay. You conclude. On the amount of love I have at this time, I won't ever want to be the one who's all in, the only one in a partnership, but I can get loved and see what happens. Because until I feel loved, I have no idea what he's capable of. I've decided I'm going to keep going. Well, that's perfect. That's all you have to do is keep going. Because you have no idea what your relationship is capable of till you make a decision to keep going. I hope everybody's listening, because this is a perfect perspective. No kidding. I'm just going to keep going. New subject. This person says, this week has been great. I've been learning a lot about making the choice to be grateful and happier. Well, bless you. Possibly the most important choice we'll ever make. If you're grateful and happy, how can things go wrong? You can't be miserable. You can't be complaining. You can't be a victim. You continue. A few mornings ago, I woke up to find that the water in my apartment had been turned off by, who knows, at the water main or somewhere. It was tempting to feel annoyed, but after a few seconds, I decided not to be annoyed. Oh, let me hold my breath. This is the stuff of legends, no kidding. You decided not to be annoyed. Such choices would change the world. Everybody says the water was turned off, it makes me so mad. No, honey, it doesn't. You have a choice. Now, if you've never seen that you've had a choice, if you've never been loved, in a way, you don't have a choice. Because you can't see one. But this person's been loved enough that he sees a choice. I'm pretty sure it's a guy. You continue. I thought about calling the office, I assume the housing office, but I decided I couldn't do it in a loving way just then. I just knew that I would say something snippy about the water being turned off without telling me. Can't shower, can't do anything. So I put it off. I had to pick up a package from the front office before 7, and I decided to wait until 6 to see if the water came back on. That's extraordinary. I could have gone to complain, but I decided to wait a little longer and see if it would just come back on, because whoever turned it off pretty much knows that inconveniences people. The city, unless you haven't paid your bill, doesn't just come and turn your water off and go, well, that was fun. No, there's a reason. They're fixing something. Very often, a simple pause in any situation is enough to enable us to wake up to our choices. It's It's beautiful. You continue. The water came back on before 6, so I went on with my day. So it must have been early in the morning. It felt so much freer to do that rather than getting bogged down by feeling unnecessary fear and emptiness. That's a beautiful phrase, so I'm going to say it again. You made a decision not to be irritated instead of feeling unnecessary fear and emptiness. Even for people who have no choice that they can see, the fear and emptiness are not needed. They're never helpful. So our job is just to learn more choices. You continue. I've been carrying this idea forward a lot this week. If I feel inconvenience, this is very cool because this person writing didn't just learn this lesson. They decided they're going to apply it to other situations. Are you kidding me? Who does that? So I've been carrying this idea forward. If I feel inconvenienced or disconnected from where I am in the moment, I just make a different decision. There have been several people during this chat who just taken my breath away. I didn't choose them. I just do them as they come. That's pretty smart. Sometimes just choosing differently is enough to get us off the path of death. Sometimes we don't even have to make the best choice, really. Because often there's a choice better than that. Just choose different from disconnected or angry. Listen to music, anything. Maybe you're not capable of being loving, but don't make the dumb choice that kills you and everybody else. You continue. This has helped out a lot at work. And this morning I had to bike home in the cold rain, even though it was pretty uncomfortable. I decided to just let go of the drama and enjoy the bike ride home. Notice how many decisions you're making instead of just letting circumstances determine what you do. This is power. The ability to choose how you'll feel, whether you'll be loving and happy, no matter what's going on around you. This is real power, and you're doing it. You conclude, I listened to some cool music. That was one of the things that occurred to me earlier, but I didn't realize that was coming. I listened to some cool music. I had some deep thoughts, and I made it home just fine in the cold rain. It feels much better this way. Oh, you are such a treat to read. So everybody who's listening, there have been several examples in this chat of people simply choosing to do the loving thing instead of reacting. So think about it. It's really this simple. You can spend your entire life reacting like being hit by being a billiard ball and being hit by other balls. Very predictable. You just react. Or you can choose to be a human and make choices. Oh my, that's so much more fun. And we can all do it. I'll see you in a week.